Hey, and welcome to the Acoustic Guitar Primer for Beginners video series. This online course I'm very excited about because as a guitar teacher, there are certain things that over and over again we're tackling with brand new students. And I've always wanted something that even with my private student lessons, I want to be able to point to something that I can say, hey, if you'll go through this program, if you'll go ahead and tackle these basics and then get back with me, we can tackle more advanced techniques. And that's what I mean by primer. Whenever you're painting a wall, you always want to put a good coat of primer on because that's the canvas with which you're going to be able to create whatever sorts of colors, whatever sorts of techniques you want to be able to put on top. So welcome to the course. There are several things that you need to know while moving forward in this program. All right, the first thing I want you to know is that there are several downloadable PDFs available to you as part of this online video course. The first one is my gear recommendations. On gear recommendations is exactly what it sounds like. I'm going to be recommending to you different guitars at different price points, especially if you're starting out on the guitar. Some very affordable options, and then some that I would consider more for intermediate or advanced players. Nonetheless, you feel free to take advantage of that PDF. It's going to have several things on there as well, like guitar picks, strings, clip-on tuners, guitar straps. Anything that might be needed for a beginner when you're starting out on the guitar is going to be in my gear recommendations. The second thing I have for you is a checklist PDF that you can work through as you're going through the lessons. There's going to be several fill in the blanks, fun facts as you're working through the guitar program. Fact is, I can't be there personally with you as a private instructor, but I did want to provide that PDF to you so that as I'm going through the videos, you can be filling out information. It's really going to help you to absorb more of the information and put it to use. Also, you have full access to this program to work through at your own pace. I would highly recommend that each of the lessons be broken up into several days or possibly weeks at a time. Usually when I'm giving private lessons to a student, we do lessons for about 30 minutes at a time. So if you're spending 30 minutes watching a video and not playing guitar, you need to factor in some time for you to practice and time for you to reflect on the things that you've already heard. And again, Acoustic Guitar Primer is meant for beginners. You probably have never touched an acoustic guitar, or maybe you've tried taking lessons in the past, things didn't work out, and maybe you're just giving it another opportunity. I'm not here to confuse you. I'm not here to give you a bunch of gimmicks or any sort of tricks like that. This is meant to be the basics to get you going. We're going to be covering guitar chords that you're going to learn. You're going to learn how to play 2 songs. I'm going to give you some advanced techniques or introduction to advanced techniques. And then at the end, I want to set you off on the right step forward so that you can go beyond Acoustic Guitar Primer and start playing more advanced things. Last thing I want you to know is that as your teacher, I want you to know that you have access to me. So if you need to email me with any questions or leave a comment on any of the videos or in the curriculum, I will do my best to answer your questions and help out in any way that I possibly can. With all that being said, download the PDFs, grab your guitar, and let's get started learning how to play the acoustic guitar. Now, one of the first things we're going to cover are the parts of the acoustic guitar. We're not meant to go super in-depth here. You don't have to become a luthier or a guitar technician, but there are different parts and things I'm going to be referring to throughout this program that you need to know. Make sure you have that PDF downloaded. There should be a page that has a picture of a guitar diagram, and we're going to be filling in the blanks as we go. The first thing I want you to become acquainted with on your acoustic guitar is the neck of the guitar. By neck, what we mean is basically everything that's connecting the body of the guitar down here up to the headstock. So this is the neck of the guitar. Now this part up here at the end of your guitar neck is called the headstock. On the headstock, we have things that are called tuning keys. You probably have 3 tuning keys on one side and 3 tuning keys on the other. Some guitars will have all 6 tuning keys on one side. It really just depends on who the maker of your guitar is. Like the name suggests, tuning keys are used to tune the guitar. Each of the 6 strings of the guitar travel down the neck and they wrap around these little pegs. Each peg has a tuning key associated with it. Where the neck and the headstock meet, there's a thick piece of either bone or plastic, and it's called the nut. This is the nut of the guitar. The nut is very important. Most of the time, if you have an affordable or cheaper made guitar, a lot of times you want to replace the nut. This is something that you probably want to have a professional do for you. But the nut has a lot to do with how high the strings are away from the guitar neck, and it also has to do with being able to keep your guitar in tune. So far we've covered the neck of the guitar, the headstock, the tuning keys, the pegs, and the nut. The next thing, and one of the more important things that you need to know as a beginner, are called frets. Metal pieces that are vertical, you can see them here. This is a fret, this is a fret here, this is a fret here. They go all up and down the neck of the guitar. Whenever we're learning to play the guitar, it's important that you know that when I say place your pointer finger on the first fret, that you do like this. If I said place your middle finger on the second fret, you would do like this. Now, even though the frets are the metal strips that are going vertical, whenever I say a fret number, you actually want to put your finger on the space below that fret. So this is the first fret of the high E string. If I place my finger on the middle fret and I play, it'll sound like this, which is not good. On just about every guitar, you're going to have dots indicating where the frets are on your guitar. My guitar has several dots starting on the 5th fret, the 7th fret, the 9th fret, and then 2 dots on the 12th frets. I also have dots on the neck of my guitar. Each guitar may have something different, but for the most part, we have the 3rd fret here, the 5th fret, 7th fret, 9th fret, and 12th frets. Those are usually going to have some sort of inlay or some sort of dot, and that's just to quickly let you know where you're at. So if you quickly need to find the 7th fret on the guitar, you can look for the dots, and the dots will help you find those places. Like I mentioned earlier, the neck is connected to the body of the guitar. The body is what's going to be resonating and producing the sound. There is a sound hole. This is called the sound hole, and this is where you'll often be dropping a majority of your guitar picks. The piece down here where all the strings seem to end is called the bridge. The bridge of the guitar has what's called bridge pins. Each of these pins is wedged into 6 individual holes where the strings are being fed into. Unless your guitar needs new strings or you need to take them out, for the most part, the bridge pins are just going to stay where they're at and you shouldn't have to worry about it. Again, if you start to change the strings on your guitar or if you have a string that breaks, I recommend, especially for beginners, that you go to a music store, find yourself a guitar professional that can either show you how to change the strings on your guitar, or you can usually just pay them to do it for you. On acoustic guitars, we usually have what's called the saddle. The saddle is basically what the strings are laying on and is causing a break angle. Okay, so this white piece right here going vertical is the saddle. It's very similar to the nut, which is up here near the headstock. So again, we have the body of the guitar, we have the sound hole, we have the bridge pins, we have the saddle, and then this big piece here is called the bridge. Now, since I'm standing with the guitar, I do have a guitar strap, and my strap has this button right here where I can secure the guitar strap. It's usually pretty easy to add or remove a guitar strap. You'll have one that's usually near the back of the neck, and then you'll have another one at the base of the body of the guitar. And then mine is plugged in so that you can hear the sound coming out of it. If your guitar doesn't have buttons or strap locks on it, that's okay. These things can be added on later. Again, I'd recommend you have it done by a professional. And if your guitar doesn't have electronics in it, if it doesn't have a pickup, you probably won't have somewhere to plug in a guitar cable. But that's okay. It's not necessary for you to learn how to play the acoustic guitar. Another thing which your guitar may or may not have is called a pick guard. A pick guard is just to help your guitar not get scratched and dinged up as you're strumming the guitar. So that's this big piece right here. Now here's a quick overview. Here we have the headstock, which is at the end of the neck. We have the nut that's connecting the headstock to the neck. We have tuning keys, which are used to tune the guitar. We have pegs, which the strings are wrapped around. We have frets, which are these vertical metal bars. We have inlays, which are the dots indicating what fret we're on. The body of the guitar, the sound hole, the pick guard. We have the saddle, which is this white piece right here. We have the bridge, We have bridge pins, and then your guitar may or may not have strap locks or buttons on them. And it may or may not have electronics or a place to plug in or unplug your guitar. Now, what I usually recommend for all my students is that part of their homework is that they use the diagram which I provided to fill in the blanks, because a week from now or at your next lesson, I want you to be able to identify the different parts of the guitar. Assuming you're well acquainted with the different parts of the guitar, we're going to move on to our next lesson, which involves tuning the guitar. Hey everyone, welcome to your lesson about tuning the guitar. Did you know that it actually doesn't matter? Your fingers could be in the exact spot that they're supposed to be. You could be using the perfect technique, but if your guitar is out of tune, it's just gonna sound really bad. That's why we need to learn how to tune our guitar. This is not something that you need to be able to master the first day that you try. It's gonna be an ongoing process. But anytime you're sitting down to play the guitar for more than 5 minutes at a time, the first thing you should do is tune your guitar. How do we tune our guitar? Well, there's different tools that you can use. In my gear recommendations PDF, there are several different clip-on tuners that you can use. The clip-on tuners need to be clipped on to the headstock of your guitar like this, and then turn that you can see what's going on. They don't actually have to be plugged into anything at all. They just have a little lithium battery that powers on and you can power off as well. I've got on screen, what you'll see is a Peterson Strobo Stomp tuner. This is a floor pedal tuner. So if you're playing live, if you're playing on stage anywhere, a floor pedal tuner is usually going to be a little bit more accurate, but it also has a mute function to it. These are going to be more expensive. You don't have to have one, but it's something good to have if you do have an electronic acoustic, something that can plug in that has a pickup. Now, to tune the guitar, we also need to know that these are the tuning keys, as we mentioned earlier. Your left hand, assuming you're a right-handed guitar player, you're going to always keep one hand on these tuning keys. The other hand is going to be used to pluck the string. I want you to notice as I pluck my low E string, as you can see, my tuner is actually showing the note E. But I'm actually going to turn this to make it out of tune. The more out of tune it gets, you start to see letters like D. Obviously, D is not E. And the alphabet works just the same with musical notes as it does in the regular alphabet. The musical alphabet goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it starts over at A again. Okay, so if I'm on the note D, and this is supposed to be a low E string, I actually need to turn this so that it goes up. As it goes up, it hits what's called D sharp. And after D sharp, we have E. My tuner is a strobe tuner. A strobe tuner, the more it moves, basically means the more out of tune you are. I want that strobe to stop moving. The closer I get in tune to the note E, the less the strobe tuner is actually moving around. So this string is now in tune as the note E. But how did I get there? I got there because I plucked the low E string and I let it ring. And as it rang, I moved the tuning key around. Can you hear that sliding motion that's happening with my string? The only time you want to turn this tuning key is when you actually can hear the sound and the pitch as it's moving around. I never want to turn the tuning keys without hearing the note move, because you can get a lot of danger that way. If your guitar is vastly out of tune, it just sounds nothing like what I've been doing so far, I want to recommend that you go to a professional or a music store. They probably will do this for free. Just tell them you need someone to tune your guitar. Then you can come back and watch the video and I'll show you how to do it yourself. There's also a smartphone app called Pano Tuner, P-A-N-O-T-U-N-E-R. It is a free app. You can set your phone in front of your guitar, be doing the same thing that I'm doing in this video. The thing with that tuner is you always want to see green. If it's turning red, that means it's out of tune. If you get the needle into the green, that means you are in tune. But let's work our way through the 6 strings. So the first tuning key you get to, if you're working your way this way up the neck, you're going to get to this one here, and this is the low E string. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my finger on the tuning key. I'm going to pluck the low E string, and I'm going to make sure I don't hit any other strings at all. As I do that, I can see, is my low E in tune? If it is, I move on to the next one. The one next to it is this one in the middle. This is my tuning key for the A string. This string here, the second string, needs to be the note A. Sure enough, it's right in tune. If it's too sharp, you start seeing something like A sharp. That means it needs to go down, okay? In the musical alphabet, you would have G sharp, then A, and then A sharp. So A sharp and B is too high, we need to bring it down. G sharp and G is too low, we need to bring it up. If I pluck my low A string and I'm seeing A sharp, that means it needs to go down. Whenever you're tuning down on a guitar, you always want to bring the pitch back up. What that's doing is it's cinching that string to where it's supposed to be. Now my A string is in tune, I can move on to the D string, the third string. My D string is in tune. Now I got to the end of the headstock, I've got to work my way around. So you want to bring your hand around to this side. If that confuses you, you can just look at the strings themselves. If I follow this fourth string up the guitar neck, I can follow the string and see that it goes to this peg, and this peg is associated with this tuner. So follow the strings if you're not sure which one to go to. Pluck my G string. When you get to this subtlety, even the smallest movement of the tuner is going to make a big difference. So the better at tuning you get, the more subtle your movements are going to be. That's also why it's important to tune every day. The acoustic guitar is made of wood. There's going to be warping if you have it sitting out or in a garage somewhere it's not supposed to be. You're going to find that your guitar is constantly going out of tune. So tuning it every day means that you don't have to spend too much time tuning in the future. After the G string, we have the B string. If I see that the B string is reading A, that means I need to go up. I need the pitch to go higher. So I'm going to turn the tuning key. You can hear it going up. And stop right on the note B. So now my B string is in tune. So the last tuning key is for the note E. Hopefully yours is reading E as well. Your homework assignment is to work on the tuning. Like I said, you're not going to be a master at this right away. It's something that takes a little bit of time every day, 5 minutes or so. But then I also want you to memorize the string names on the guitar. So we have E, A, D, G, B, and E. E, A, D, G, B, E. Say that to yourself as many times as you can and memorize it, because it's also going to be helpful when I start telling you to put your index finger on the B string. Where is the B string? E, A, D, G, B. It's the second string from the bottom. If I tell you to put your pointer finger on the A string first fret, you need to memorize the string names and then familiarize yourself with them to the point where somebody can come along and say, put your pointer finger on the third fret of the D string, or the third fret of the low E string. I usually will name these low E and high E. So the high E string is here. The low E string is there. Now, assuming your guitar is in tune, it's time to move on and learn your first ever guitar chord. As an acoustic guitar player, one of the most important things you can do early on is to learn as many guitar chords as you can. Now, what is a chord? A chord is simply a combination of 2 or more notes together. So if I were to just play this one note by itself, it would sound like this. If I played 2 notes together, it would sound like this. If I played a full G chord, you would hear something like this. Chords are essential for all acoustic guitar players to learn how to play and then also to put into practice. Part of my gear recommendations PDF that's available for you to download as part of this online course are guitar picks. If you don't own a guitar pick, make sure you've got some. Grab your guitar pick and let's learn our first chord together, the G major chord. Now, if you use my gear recommendations, you probably got a set of these star picks. The star picks just have a hole in the middle punched out, so it makes it easier for you to hold. To hold the guitar pick, I'm simply going to grab my two fingers, my index finger and my middle finger, and they're going to be going the direction of the guitar pick, just like this. My thumb on the back side is basically running perpendicular to the direction of the guitar pick. So if my guitar pick is going straight down, my thumb is going left and right. Try to hold your guitar pick like this if you can. Once you got your guitar pick held comfortably, we can start playing chords. A G major chord is made up of the notes G, B, and D. I'd like for you to memorize that going forward. G, B, D. Those three notes make up the G major chord. To play chords on the guitar, we have to put our fingers in certain positions. So the first thing I want you to do is take your ring finger, the finger next to your smallest finger, okay? I want you to place it on the 3rd fret of the low E string, just like this. The 3rd fret of the low E string. Now I want you to press down on that string, and as you're pressing down on that string, I want you to take your guitar pick in your other hand, and I want you to pluck that string. Did you hear a pure note? If you did, congratulations, you've just fretted your first note. If you heard something like this, what that means is you need to press down harder. When you're starting out on guitar, your fingertips are basically like marshmallows. This isn't your fault. We're just not used to using the tips of our fingers in such a way. If you have long fingernails, this might make it quite challenging on the guitar. I had a student one time where she wanted to add her extensions to her fingernails. And I told her, I said, you can do that, but if you go to fret guitar chords and you want to be a guitar player, it's going to be especially difficult for you to play the guitar. So you might just want to keep your fingernails trimmed a little bit. And the main thing is your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the low E string. Try to pluck it and create a sound. The next thing you can do is put your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A string. It would go right here. You want to do the same thing and give that string a pluck so that it makes a sound. Now let's put those two fingers together. We have our ring finger on the 3rd fret of the low E string. We have our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A string. Pluck those back and forth. Now we've got the two notes G and B. The last finger we need to use is our pinky finger on the 3rd fret of the high E string. Let's try to add our pinky to our ring finger and our middle finger. That will complete our G major chord. To do a strum, I'm going to hold my guitar pick and I'm just going to go against every string on my way down. A lot of times beginners will be quite rough. You don't need to squeeze the life out of your guitar pick. What that will do is make a very harsh and loud sound. Hold the guitar pick gently and let the guitar produce the sound for you. The thing I want you to do anytime you're learning chords is to pluck each string individually to make sure they're all making a pure sound. If you hear any dead strings, that means you either have a finger where it's not supposed to be, or you're not pressing hard enough. Whenever I'm fretting chords on the guitar, I want to make sure that I've got enough space between my fingers and the neck of the guitar. If my fingers are flat against the neck of the guitar, it's going to hurt my wrist, and it's also not going to produce a very good sound. So we need our fingers to come at the guitar, almost like a praying mantis. We need to come at the neck of the guitar and not up against it like this. The way to know if you've got your chord mastered or not is to pluck each string individually and hear that nice, pure sound. Now, anytime we're learning a new chord, especially since this is your first chord on the guitar, there's going to be a lot of pain involved. You should know that pain is actually necessary because what's happening is those marshmallow fingertips of yours, they need to harden and callus up. If they can harden and callus up soon, you'll be able to move on to more and more playing. One of my students was told by his mother to spend 15 minutes a day, almost like he was doing chores. So part of his chores were cleaning up his room, do the dishes, and then he spends 15 minutes a day playing guitar. Even within the first week after they put this into place, he is now playing songs. He moved on from his fingers hurt, couldn't fret the chords. 15 minutes a day made all the difference. So take your time. You can come back to this video course and pick up where you left off at any time, but you need to put in the work so that it becomes effortless for you to fret and play the G major chord. Once you've got the G major chord solid, we're going to move on to our next chord, C major. Hey everyone, welcome to your C major chord lesson. Just like we did with the G chord, there's going to be a lot of similarities. These are all meant to build on each other. So if you have put in the practice and you've mastered your G major chord, the C major chord shouldn't be that much more difficult. A C major chord is made up of the notes C, E, and G. Try to put those to memory as soon as you can. C, E, and G. To play a root position C major chord, it's got quite a similar fingering position as the G major chord. Our ring finger is actually going to be on the 3rd fret of the A string instead of the 3rd fret of the low E. Our next finger, the middle finger, is going to be on the 2nd fret of the D string. So we have the 3rd fret of the A and the 2nd fret of the D string. It looks very similar to our G major chord. They're only one string separated. Last, you're going to put your pointer finger on the 1st fret of the B string. Again, you want to pluck the string and hear that nice, pure tone. If you hear something like this, you're probably not pressing hard enough. Now, whenever you're strumming a C major chord like this, you don't want to hit the low E string. That low E string will make it sound a little bit muddy. If I leave the low E string out, I'm going to strum from the A string down. That sounds a whole lot better. The thing you want to do next is to transition from your C major chord, which you've just learned, to our G major chord. This needs to be an effortless and smooth transition. So early on, you're going to play your G major chord, give it a strum, and then as quickly as you can, I want you to move to the C major chord and give it a strum. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to count out loud, and I want you to change the chord so that every time I say 1, I want you to play the next chord. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. What you need to do is work on making that as quick as you possibly can. So you can do this on your own. You need to count to 4, and every time you get to 1, play a different chord. As you notice it getting easier and easier, I want you to speed this up. So if you're going from G to C, I want you to go 1, 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. Go faster and faster. G, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. C, and so on. There may not be a song just yet where you're going from G to C so quickly, but what you're trying to work on is you're building up that muscle memory so that your brain knows where G and C are on the guitar. And I want to encourage you as quickly as you can without looking. Many students, they will learn how to play guitar while staring at the guitar like this, and they'll become good guitar players. But as soon as they lift their head up away from the guitar, it's almost like they're having to learn the guitar all over again. So I want to encourage you, as soon as you can, fret these chords without looking. That'll also incorporate into your muscle memory. You want to be able to change from the G chord to the C chord as cleanly and as quickly as possible. That's going to set you up for success as we learn our first song together. He's got the whole world in his hands. Everyone, congratulations. We're about to start learning our first song together. He's got the whole world in his hands. Now, this may not be a song that you're requested to play over and over again, but it's exciting because if you've learned your G major chord and your C major chord, and you've worked on those transitions, we should be able to play this song together. There is a chord chart within the PDF that I've included as part of this online course. So go ahead and pull out your chord chart for He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, and let's get started. In a future lesson, we're going to work on what's called a strumming pattern. Strumming patterns you hear all the time. They can be things like it's really what gives rhythm and feel to your guitar playing. Like I said, we're going to work on that a little bit later, but as we're going through He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, all I want you to be doing is down strums early on. There are 2 chords, which you should be familiar with by now, the C major chord and the G major chord. Take a look at your chord chart and let's begin. As you can see, we're going back and forth from the C chord to the G chord. The first thing I want you to do, if you're singing along with this as well, you'll have to pardon my singing voice. Just want to give you some context for this. I want you to do a down strum every time you see a chord. If you're not familiar with chord charts, basically the chord is floating above the word or the syllable that we need to play it on. So in the first line of verse 1, it says, He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world. You can see above the words whole, it has a C chord at first, and then it goes to a G chord. This is telling us where we need to play those chords. You keep playing the chord you're on until you see a new chord pop up. This song, He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, is in the key of C, and we're going to be counting to 4. Why do I say we're counting to 4? Well, time signature tells us how many beats per measure. Or in this case, it's going to be how many times we're strumming per measure. So to do a down strum, 1 per beat, we would do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Now I'm going to sing and play through He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. I'm going to do verse 1, and then we're going to talk about it. So all I would do first is I would count in. Go 1, 2, 3. He's got the whole world in his hands. 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 As you can see, the first 3 lines, we're doing 2 measures per chord. So on the C chord to start the song, we're going to do 2 measures. He's got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4. Everything I'm doing there is a down strum. Again, we're going to work on a more complicated strumming pattern in the future. The same thing's going to apply with every verse of this song. So if you have somebody that's singing with you as part of a group, they can be singing and you can be playing at the same time. So have somebody singing with you, or you sing it yourself too. I want you to strum a C chord, hold it out. That's going to be our intro. 1, 2, 3. He's got the whole world in his hands. 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 How have you been doing? If you had trouble playing the G chord or the C chord, you can go back to those lessons at any time and rewatch them. Just make sure you're working on those chord changes. Remember what we said earlier. Start very slow. Start with C chord and go 1, 2, 3, 4. Change 1, 2, 3, 4. Change 1, 2, 3, 4. Change 1. Now, some beginners do this over and over and over again. We like to make up beats that aren't there to give us room to change chords. But when you're singing along, it's not something that you can get away with. So if you feel comfortable singing out loud as you're practicing, even if you're not going to be a singer, it's something important that you can do. As we're going from C to G, make sure you're not adding any beats that aren't there. So if I'm playing C, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4. There was too much space in between. We need that space to be gone. And the only way we're going to get there is to work on our chord changes. Now, if you feel comfortable with this song, He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, let's move on to our next lesson, which is going to be on strumming patterns. Hey everyone, welcome to your lesson on strumming patterns. We're going to take that song that we just learned, He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, and we're going to jazz it up a little bit. So instead of just doing down strums the whole time, let's actually play what's called a strumming pattern. Strumming patterns are usually indicated by either a down strum or what's called an up strum. An up strum goes from the high treble strings to the lower strings. A down strum goes from the heavy strings on top to the higher strings on the bottom. The strumming pattern I want to teach you for this song, He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, goes like this. Down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. Down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. Down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. Down, down, up, down, down, up, down. Take a look at the PDF on strumming patterns so you can follow along. You should see some arrows, downs and ups as well. It's going to feel a little silly at first, but you should feel the rhythm or the flow to it. It's going to feel a lot more natural than just doing down strums. Most songs that you hear don't really have just down strums like this the whole time. It's usually a little bit of up strums every now and then. So let's take the song, He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. Let's just go to a C chord and stay on the C chord just to work on this strumming pattern. We're going 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. Down, down, up, down, down, up, down. Down, up, down. Down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. Here's that strumming pattern put into place with verse 1 of He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. 1, 2, 3. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the whole world in Strumming patterns can come in so many different forms and different functions. It really just depends on the song that you're playing. But the main thing you want to work on is being able to keep the flow going so that you're not hesitating either in between strums or in between chords. A variation of that down, down, up, down, down, up, down is to actually keep it propelling forward. So what we're doing is we're adding another down, up, down at the end of each measure. It would go like this. The difficulty is going to be it gives you less time to change chords in between. You've got to stay on that C chord a little bit longer before you go to the G chord because we're still strumming through it. Now, without me singing, here's our alternate pattern for He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. 1, 2, 3. Like I said, strumming patterns can get way more advanced as we go on. We're going to learn another strumming pattern for our next song. But before we get to our next song, we need to learn one more chord. So I'll see you at the next lesson. Hey, first of all, I just want to say great job on making it this far. I hope this has been extremely beneficial to you. Again, this is Acoustic Guitar Primer for Beginners. So what this is doing is setting up the basics so that we can add more advanced techniques on in the future. Now this lesson is covering the D major chord. So grab your guitar, make sure it's in tune, and join with me here. For the D major chord, it's going to involve the 3 highest strings. And what I want you to do is put your pointer finger or your index finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. Then you're going to take your ring finger and put it on the 3rd fret of the B string. Last but not least, your middle finger is on the 2nd fret of the high E string. A D major chord is made up of the notes D, F sharp, and A. D, F sharp, A. Try to memorize that if you can. Now the D major chord is going to prove to be a little bit more difficult to learn rather than the C major chord and the G major chord were. The C chord and the G major chord were relatively easy to transfer from because the fingering was pretty close. This D major chord can prove to be pretty difficult for beginners because how much of a transition is involved with all of your fingers. On a D major chord, you don't want to hit the low E string or the low A string at all. So you're going to start with the D string and you're going to strum. Again, as with any new chord, make sure you're listening out for any buzzing. Again, you want to hear pure notes. Just try to avoid that low E string and the low A string. This one is going to take quite some time for you to practice your transitioning because going from the C chord to the G chord is one thing, but going from the G chord to the D chord is another. Take all the time you need to practice slowly. It doesn't do any good to try to do this thing too fast and to do it sloppy. Make sure you got your fingers in the right position so that you can make those transitions. I would recommend if you're going from the D chord to the G chord that you put your pinky down on the 3rd fret of the high E string, and then you can lift the ring finger and the middle finger up to the top. So in a way, your pinky becomes the transition point. Spend some time practicing from your D major to your G major. And then from your D major to your C major. Just use down strums for now, and then when you're ready, you can add that strumming pattern that we did on He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. You can add that to your D major chord if you'd like to. Once you've got your D major chord figured out and perfected, let's move on to your next song, which is called Amazing Grace. I'll see you there. Hey everyone, welcome to your next guitar song. This one's Amazing Grace, probably one of the most popular songs of all time. It's a great one to have in your pocket, and you can also develop more advanced techniques on top of this in the future. The thing you need to know about Amazing Grace is that it's in the time signature of 3/4. So when we're in 3/4, we're counting to 3 and starting over instead of 4. It means there are 3 beats for every measure. On He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, it was in 4/4. So we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, if I'm going from C to G and I'm in 3/4, I'd probably do this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So Amazing Grace gets 3 strums per measure. We're going to go back to just doing down strums since we're learning this new song with its new chords. Amazing Grace, we're going to be playing this in the key of G. So we're going to be using the G chord that we learned. We're going to be using the C chord, and we're going to be using the D chord. G, C, and D. If you've got those 3 chords, G, C, and D, figured out relatively easily, we can use them in Amazing Grace. First thing you'll notice in your chord chart that's been provided as part of this online course is the intro to the song. The intro to this song, we're going to play 2 measures of G, 1 measure of C, 1 measure of G. We're going to use down strums, and we're counting to 3 for each measure. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. C, 2, 3, G, 2. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. How did you do? Now take your chord chart, and this time I'm not going to be singing, but I want you to play along with me. I'm going to say the chord, and then I'm going to count out the rest of the beats in the measure. As you can notice, verse 1, what I've done is I've provided the name of the chord at the start of each measure. Verses 2, 3, and 4, you actually see less chords printed. It doesn't mean they're not there. What I'm just trying to do is prepare you for an absence of chords so that you can anticipate the changes as they're happening, okay? So what I want to do now is I'm going to play through the intro and verse 1. You follow along on your chord chart, have it ready with you. Play along on your guitar. We're just doing down strums for each beat. And I'm going to say the chord name as we're changing chords. Here we go. Starting with G. 1, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. C, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. C, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. D, 2, 3. D, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. C, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. D, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. G. How did you do? Now we're starting with down strums because even though you've learned some strumming patterns, these are new songs. And whenever we're doing new songs, we want to focus first on making sure the chord changes are correct. Make sure your timing is correct. And then with strumming patterns, you can add whatever you need to. You can change it up. You can make it more upbeat. You can play the song slower. It's all up to you, but take advantage of this chord chart. Play through as many times as you want to. Again, if you have someone who can sing with you or you sing yourself, that would be great as well. Come up with your own arrangements. But if you know the chords G, C, and D, you can certainly play Amazing Grace. Now, in the next lesson, I want to introduce you to guitar picking. We're going to take the same song, Amazing Grace, and we're going to do some picking with it rather than strumming, but you really need to work on the chord changes and have those solid before you move on. Once you're ready, I'll see you at the next lesson. Everyone, welcome to your introduction to guitar picking. Guitar picking, finger picking is one of my favorite things to do on the acoustic guitar. And I wanted to provide this, even though it's a little bit advanced, it's something that I want you to have a taste of so that if you do enjoy it, you can pursue more advanced techniques in the future. So we're gonna take this song, Amazing Grace, that we've just learned, and we're gonna do some finger picking with it. So whatever hand you're using to fret your chords, go ahead and make a G major chord, and we're gonna keep it there for just a little bit. Your right hand, or your picking hand, is gonna be using your thumb, your index finger, and your middle finger for this exercise. What I want you to do is on the G chord, I want you to hit your thumb on the low E string, and then your pointer finger is gonna hit the G string, and your middle finger is gonna hit the B string. Again, this is an introduction to a rather advanced technique. So if you're struggling with it, just spend as much time as you can working on your thumb on the low E string, your pointer finger on the G string, and your middle finger on the B string. Each of these fingers, if you haven't developed calluses already, you probably have some calluses on your left hand. Well, now your right hand has an opportunity to get some calluses as well. If you'd like to use a guitar pick, you can do that as well. If you have no intentions of doing finger picking, that's totally fine. The example I'm going to be playing for you can be played with a guitar pick as well. You don't have to use your fingers if you're not interested. So what I want you to do is I want you to fret your G major chord, and then what I want you to do is an exercise that involves thumb, pointer, middle, thumb, pointer, middle, thumb, pointer, middle. We're counting these with each beat of the measure. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The only thing that changes when you're going to a C chord is now your thumb, instead of hitting the low E string, you're gonna use your thumb to hit the A string. Thumb, pointer, middle, thumb, pointer, middle. So let's just practice from the G chord to the C chord, back and forth. We're gonna go 2 measures of G and 2 measures of C. Let me count us in. 1, 2, 3. G, 2, 3. G, 2, 3, C, 2, 3, C, 2, 3, G, 2, 3, G, 2, 3, C, 2, 3, C, 2, 3. Notice how my hand that's picking the strings is hovering somewhere near the sound hole. My thumb is actually running parallel to the string. So it's the side of my thumb, not necessarily the meat part of my thumb. My other fingers are using more of the tips to hit the G and the B string. I usually refer to this as a claw technique. It's kind of like I'm grabbing at the strings like a claw. Last but not least, we have the D major chord. Now, when we go to the D major chord, our thumb is going to be hitting the open D string. So practice that as long as you can. Now, once you're comfortable with those 3 chords, we have G, C, and D, and G. That is the pattern we're going to be using as an introduction to finger picking. Of course, it can get more and more complicated, but that's the pattern I want you to use for all of Amazing Grace. So now what we're going to do is we're going to play the intro and verse 1 of Amazing Grace, but using finger picking this time. Here we go. I'll count us in. 1, 2, 3. G, 2, 3, G, 2, 3, C, 2, 3, G. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. Of course, the more comfortable you get, the faster you can go. 1, 2, 3. Now, when you're playing something like He's Got the Whole World in His Hands that involves 4 beats per measure, what I recommend doing, go to your C chord. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do thumb, index, middle, index. So it kind of works almost like a hill. We're going up and down. We have the A string 3rd fret. We have the G string. We have the middle finger on the B string. And then we do the G string again. That gives it 4 beats instead of just 3. So He's Got the Whole World in His Hands will go something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, this is meant to be an introduction to fingerpicking. Go ahead and start this process already, even if you have a little bit of an interest in using fingerpicking in the future. It's going to be good to go ahead and learn a few of these simple fingerpicking exercises as much as you can. Now, I've got one more lesson for you, and we're going to be covering what do you do next. So as soon as you're ready, I'll see you at the next lesson. Hey everyone, first I want to say congratulations, and I truly mean it, on making it through the Acoustic Guitar Primer for Beginners online course. There's so much content we've covered, and I hope you've taken the time to put this into bite-sized pieces so that you can perfect the things that we've covered. We've covered the C major chord, the G chord, the D chord. We talked about finger picking and strumming patterns. We've learned Amazing Grace and He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. We learned how to tune our guitars. You now know what a headstock is, a nut, a fret, a sound hole, a bridge. Think about all the things that you are primed and ready to just launch off into guitar playing. So I want to encourage you to, number one, put these things to practice. You may be wanting to learn a Taylor Swift song. You may want to learn a hymn or something for church. It doesn't matter. You have the skills that are necessary to learn. You know how to read chord diagrams and chord charts. So use Google, use the internet to find the songs specifically that you're wanting to learn how to play. If you don't have a resource to go to, I want to encourage you to hit the subscribe button on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/HeyChrisGreen. You probably got onto this course from seeing one of my live streams. Pretty regularly, I'm doing guitar lessons live, and I also have 5-minute lessons that are just being blasted on social media. So you can follow me over on YouTube, also on Facebook.com as well. Thank you so much for being part of the program, and I wish you the best of luck in all of your guitar playing. Thanks.